Okay, good morning everyone. Shalom Aleichem. The first subject I want to speak about is Daf Tzadi Zayin Amud Beis. Daf Tzadi Zayin Amud Beis discusses the Mishnah on Daf Tzadi Zayin Amud Aleph. The Mishnah said that a almana from Eresin or from Nesuin, she could sell even without the rishus of Bezdin. Reb Shimon says from Nesuin she could sell, but from Eresin she can only sell with Bezdin. Why? Because she doesn't have Eresin, she doesn't have Mezainos, Minah Eresin, and anyone who doesn't have Mezainos needs the rishus of Bezdin. But the Tanakama holds she could sell the property of the husband, whether with rishus of Bezdin or without. Bein min hanesuin, bein min eresin. So the Gemara says, I understand min hanesuin, she could sell because of mezainos. But min eresin, what's the reason that she is allowed to sell? So Ula says the reason is misham china. Misham china. So Rashi says, what does it mean misham china? Sheyu ba'alein lechin be'inehen. We want women to have an easy time collecting their ksuba. This way husbands find favor in the eyes of their wives, meaning we want women to find their husband favorable, so that women do not refrain from marrying men. We want women to like men, because otherwise women are not going to want to get married. So we say that a woman, even minha erusin, that she's not entitled to mezainos, should be able to collect her ksuba easily, so that women should want to get married. That's how Rashi learns chen. Chen is that women should find men favorable and desire to get married. Otherwise, women will not want to get married. That's how Rashi learns. So the Ritva says that this is against the Hoshas, because there's a general rule. Tav l'mesav tandumi l'mesav armalu. A woman is willing to marry a shlamazel schlepper as long as she doesn't have to be on her own. That women want to get married more than men do. That women are more interested in getting married than men. So if that's the case, what does Rashi mean that chen is that we want women to find men favorable so that women should want to get married? That flies in the face of the idea of Yoiser Misha Ish Roitza Lisa Isha Roitza Lisa Isha Roitza Lihinase. That's what the Ritva says. V'hiksha alav d'ha'amrina behedya b'kulei Talmuda ki Yoiser Misha Ish Roitza Lisa Isha Roitza Lihinase. Ki Yoiser Misha Ish Roitza Lisa Isha Roitza Lihinase. More than a man wants to get married, a woman wants to get married. So the Ritva therefore says, and he quotes Tosfos, and Tosfos brings this parish as well, that chen does not mean we want women to find men favorable. What does it mean? Lekach pirish b'Tosfos k'pirish Rabbeinu Chanan Azal mishum china shen timtzaena chen be'inei ha'anashim. We want women to be found favorable in the eyes of men. Just the opposite of Rashi. Rashi learns that we want women to find men favorable. Tosfos learns that we want men to find women favorable. Mishum china shetimtzaena chen be'inei ha'anashim. Why? Ki kishetigbe ksubasa mehira shaloi b'toirach yikbetzu alei balim. Husbands don't want the process to drag out, even though it's very unusual. I don't fully get it. Even though they're the ones paying, but if their paying is going to entail a long, complicated, dragged out process, they're going to say, what should I get married for? I'm going to have responsibility of ksuba, and it's going to be a headache. But now that it's an easy process, now that the process is seamless, so then men are going to want to get married. And that's what the Gemara means in the end. What chen do Yarshim have? What chen do Yarshim have? V'hainu da'amrinon Yarsheha her Yarshim my chen ika. What chen is there? Because what situation is there that husbands are going to want if the whole reason is husbands are going to want to get married to women because the process is streamlined. But if there's a situation where she dies, so do husbands care that her yarshim's process of collecting is streamlined? What chen is there? And the answer is, let's say she's inherited by a daughter or a sister, that they are single, and this way people will want to marry them, knowing that by doing so the process will be streamlined. So in other words, Rashi learns the idea of chen is that women should want to marry the man, and the Tosfos quotes Rabbi Yehuda that the svara is that men should want to marry the women. So now the question is, what's the nafka mina between Rashi and Rabbi Yehuda? So it's a very interesting sefer. I'm not sure if we ever quoted from it yet this year. The sefer is Ayeles Ahavim. Ayeles Ahavim on Kesuvos was written by Rabbi Aryeh Leibtzins. Lag B'Omer time, we were at his kever. He's buried in Warsaw. Rabbi Aryeh Leibtzins left over in his tzava that anyone who helps publish his svarim, he will be a melitz for them. So his svarim are very popularly published. What would the nafka mina be between Rashi's chen and Rabbeinu Hananel's chen? So he says something very interesting. He says that the nafka mina would be, let's go back to the Mishnah. The Mishnah says that according to the Tanakama, a woman's allowed to collect bein min ha'eres and bein min ha'nesuin, as opposed to Reb Shimon, she could only collect min ha'nesuin because she gets mezainos. And mezainos is something that we have to give her, because if she's not going to collect mezainos, then it's going to be a problem. She's not going to have what to eat. So let's think for a moment. According to the Tanakama, that a woman, both min ha'eres and min ha'nesuin, is allowed to sell. Why is she allowed to sell? She's allowed to sell her ksuba because of chen. What about her mezainos? Is she allowed to collect mezainos? In other words, is a woman who's selling property to collect her ksuba, is she allowed to sell property to collect mezainos? Now, min ha'eres, there is no mezainos. What about min ha'nesuin? Is she allowed to sell property to collect mezainos? Now, Reb Shimon says you're allowed to collect mezainos, but he doesn't subscribe to chen. Why doesn't he subscribe to chen? He doesn't hold of chen. He just holds a woman's allowed to sell property to be fed. But what about, according to Tanakama, who does hold of chen? Why would a woman, min ha'nesuin, be allowed to sell property for mezainos? Is it for the same reason as Reb Shimon, that there's just an allowance for a woman to sell property to get mezainos? Or does chen apply for mezainos? So it depends. Rashi's chen, that we want women to like men, well, that would be a reason to apply to mezainos as well. Meaning women will like men if not only they could collect their ksuba, but if they could eat. So according to the Tanakama doesn't have to come on to the svar of Reb Shimon that stamazai, a woman could sell property to be fed. But according to this new pshat of Rabbeinu Hananel, that the reason of chen is not that women should like men, that men should like women, so that the process is streamlined when they collect their ksuba, that has nothing to do with mezainos. What does a guy care how the woman is fed after the marriage is terminated? So there's no svara in the world of Rabbeinu Hananel that it's men should like women. Chen does not apply to mezainos. So then the Tanakama would have to come on to Reb Shimon's svara that the woman could sell to get food for a stama svara. That, in other words, that we want a woman to be able to feed herself. So the Ayeles Ahavim says, Ayin pnei Yeshua shebikesh lamar delahach taimi lo yitzarch loymar taima mishum mezayni ayin sham v'loy nehira delamanda amar mishum china. According to the opinion of chen, lo shayach klal b'mezaynos L'perish Rabbeinu Chananel. Chen would not apply to food, according to Rabbeinu Chananel, not like Rashi. She'eskimu of Roiv HaMefarshim, that most of the Mefarshim agreed to Rabbeinu Chananel, Kadei she'yehi la'aba ma'ali nasei. So that she will be able to get married. In other words, according to Rabbeinu Chananel, what's the sort of chen? That men will want to marry women knowing the process is streamlined. And it's pashut that the reason of mezonos is better than the reason of chen. So in other words, we don't need chen, and chen does not apply in the world of Rabbeinu Chananel's chen does not apply to mezonos. Masha'in kain, according to Rashi, where it's we want women to find men desirable, so then that would apply to mezonos as well. Okay, so we have Machlokes Rishonim, what the svar of chen is. Rashi learns very novelly that it's that women should want to marry. It's that women should find men desirable. That would apply to mezonos, as opposed to Rabbeinu Chananel, who says in general, when do we ever have to try to encourage women to get married? It's that we're trying to encourage men to get married, and in that case, that would only apply to ksuba and not to mezonos. Okay, so that's
the whole shakla entirety of the Gemara was that by mezonos we don't need to go on to say or shalait spayish ishdoi, right? The Gemara says bish laima, by we don't want her to wait because she needs to eat now, so she's allowed to tell. We don't even come on to Chen B'chal. It was only, the whole Machlokes was only in Ayeles for Kesuvos b'Nafka.
right. So therefore what?
So what this Machlokes, what did we say Chen by the Zaynis if it's not even Shayach?
Why is it not Shayach?
Because you don't need to come on to Chen B'chal. Everybody agrees that when it comes to mezonos, the woman is allowed to tell right now because she needs mezonos. She can't wait 30 days until that does something. She needs food today.
The question is, do you need that? In other words, can in Reb Shimon you have that svar? But the question is, according to the Tanakama, would chen also address mezonos? You're saying you don't need chen to address mezonos? You have the svar of mezonos is better than chen? I mean, that's what Ayeles Ahavim says. Yeah, but that's before the Gemara came on to. The Gemara didn't know chen. Once the Gemara has chen, Bishlama Minanasum Mishum Mezoine element eres in my time. Now, once we have the svara of Mishum China, or even Lefishein Adam Reitzish Baza Ishta Bevezdin, would that apply to Mezoinos as well? Potentially it could. That's basically what we're saying. Potentially it could. Okay.